welcome to episode 102 of The Route presented by White Whale Marketing. The Route is a glorified sports business coffee chat that is a new guest every episode as they share their experiences and route in sports. I'm Christopher Nascimento, and as always, let's get started. So, a couple quick things before we get going here. If you haven't already, you can see now that it popped up if you're watching on YouTube. Follow us at The Route Sports on all social media. So LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. We're going to be start pushing that a bit more. And then if you want to check us out on YouTube, it's going to be at the White Whale Marketing YouTube account under the Route playlist. So do that. And then also another thing to kind of get into before we begin is subscribing, right? So whether you're on Apple, Google, Spotify, YouTube, etc., subscribe, follow, rate 5 stars, like all that stuff allows us to continue to grow. And then if you're on YouTube, maybe even leave a nice comment too, because then that engagement allows us to kind of grow further. And that's always good stuff. So we can continue pushing this podcast. And the last thing before we kind of get into today's guest, which is always the main priority, is a quick little message from Bedstamp. So obviously, everyone listening here is within or has an interest in sports, right? One of the biggest things in sports right now is sports betting. So I got something for you to listen to. So like me, during whether it's hockey, NBA, whatever season for sports, sometimes now, especially with it being legal in Canada, you want to place a couple of bucks on, let's say, your favorite team. And, I've had times where I'm watching the game, my Senators are down, let's say 3-1. I was like, oh, let me put a couple of dollars and see if they can kind of get a comeback here. And, without failure, as soon as I place it, my buddy or, let's say TSN that I'm watching on TV, they'll show me the exact same bet that I just made, but at better odds, right? So already I'm kind of at a loss. So the solution to that is using something like Betstamp to compare the best available odds among sports books. So the only way you're going to get an edge in online sports betting is by having an account with multiple sports books. So download the Betstamp app or go to betstamp.app/Ontario and use the code WHALE so you can get access to all of their affiliates and their prices. Betstamp allows you to verify the existence of a proposed bet with their corresponding odds. This provides you to buy and sell picks with full transparency. So users selling picks on Betstamp do not sacrifice any royalty or cut to the app, and it's completely free, which, free is always good stuff. So again, if you want an edge in sports betting, you don't want to be in that situation where I'm in, where I kind of get a little too trigger happy and then, there's better odds somewhere else. Use Betstamp by downloading their app or visiting betstamp.app/Ontario and using the code WHALE to get access to all of their affiliates and pricing. With that now complete, we can kind of get to the main thing for the podcast, which is our guest. So I'd now like to welcome someone who has, worked their way up in the sports world from being a college student athlete to now being the team market owner and president of Flint United. Kevin Mays, welcome to the Route. How's it going?
It's going well. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, no. Can't wait to kind of get into it. As I was saying before we kind of, began, I came across your profile on LinkedIn. It seems something like pretty unique and different, where that's what the Route's all about, right? Just kind of showing the different ways to kind of get your foot in sports. So yeah, let's kind of begin. How did this begin, right? When you went to Central Michigan, student athlete, what was that process like, and how did we get to where we are today?
Yeah, absolutely. Started out as a football player and track and field athlete, a thrower, so not a sprinter or anything like that, but the discus shot put in high school, and that transferred me, the opportunity to be a preferred walk on the football team and to also hold an athletic scholarship through track and field. So, just being a lifelong athlete already at that point and, develop the skill, the hard work, the dedication that it takes to get to that point. And, was blessed with that opportunity and, was a part of some really, really amazing teammates, coaches. Was able to win a championship, a Mid-American Conference championship in football. Played with Antonio Brown, J.J. Watt, Dan Lefevre, a big name at that time, and a few other guys. And then also went on in track and field to become a two-time All-American and conference champion, school record holder, conference record holder, and all those things. But knowing that I didn't or wasn't going to be a doctor, didn't have, lawyer, any of those things kind of in my sights. You know, it was definitely helping me to build a foundation in sports business, sports administration. That kind of got me to where I am today. So, it was that waking up every day thing, and wanting to do what I love the most, and being around sports and in the industry was just that.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's an exciting place to kind of get into. But I guess maybe my first kind of question with that is, how did you, pick Central Michigan? Was it something where maybe it's close to home? Was it something purely athletics? Like what, like how did that work?
Yeah, the process really, drew down to who offered, the best for me, and obviously academically and financially. Um, I had a few other Division 2 institutions, and I was having some conversations even with Ole Miss and the SEC down south, which was sort of
Mhm.
exciting. But having the opportunity sports was attractive. Having the coaches come in and really support uh, me in allowing me to do those things was really attractive. And when it came down to it, that's what really sold me. And it is close to home, about a hour and a half north of the city of Flint. um, didn't really know too many people on campus at the time. Had some family friends and things like that that kind of helped me get acclimated once I did campus. But taking that step out, even if it is just a few minutes up the road from home, is a big thing. So close enough to where I could still get home and people come see me, see my games, see my competitions. But yeah, they were the most attractive and persistent in ensuring that I was going to help them reach the goals they had, and I was going to be able to reach my goals as well.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I guess you kind of touched on it at the end there when you kind of explained how your route began. But you were saying how you didn't necessarily have your sights on being a doctor or a lawyer or something else, and that's why you kind of maybe dove into sports a little further. How did that begin? Because that's something where that's a lot of the questions people have, right? Where I remember when I was in school, I literally Googled how to get a job in sports, right? So how did that begin? Where did you start, and how did you kind of grow from there?
Yeah, so it started for me actually. My first role out of college was in, I guess we'll kind of say, real estate or property management. I was responsible for a manufactured home facility that was really close to the Palace of Auburn Hills. So, I had 225 home sites. There was a lake, it was a pool. I mean, it was a really cool job to have coming straight out of school. I didn't have to pay any bills. All my housing was paid for. Um, and it was, I guess, too much responsibility at the time, being 22, 23 years old, however old I was. And I'm like, this is cool, but it's not a lot of fun. So once I got out of there, I actually came down to Atlanta and started working for a company called the Aspire Group. And the
Mhm.
Aspire Group is a third party organization, manages now ticket sales, fundraising, and development. They do a lot of feasibilities and different things like that to better um, sports properties all across the country. So I started out there in the National Sales Center downtown Atlanta, and we were responsible for all the NCAA championship properties. So we sold for everything from the Frozen Four in men's hockey all the way down to the lacrosse national championships. And that's really where my path and my route started. And
Yeah.
sports was with them.
Yeah, yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And now that you're kind of talking about Aspire, there's someone I spoke to recently. I think they were on the podcast as well. Don't remember who it was, but I think maybe from the Canadian side they were working with Aspire, if I'm not mistaken. So it's pretty interesting. But do you mind maybe talking about that transition? Because a lot of the people that we have listening aren't necessarily, let's say, students, but they're recent graduates or they're young professionals where maybe they're at the point where, hey, I want to make, especially after the pandemic, make that jump back into sports now that they're hiring, or how did that work? How did you go from real estate property management to kind of getting in with Aspire?
Yeah, I was still relatively, young at that time, didn't really have a true understanding of what working in sports even was. But going into Aspire, the one thing that I learned and learned quickly is that if you can impact the bottom line of any organization, you can pretty much find success anywhere in that organization. And, sales, no one, well, I won't say no one, but a lot of times people are intimidated by it, because they don't truly understand, how to do it properly, or, what it really takes. But, once you find your passion through selling, once you find your passion in
Mhm.
what it is that you're truly, impacting and developing, it comes, second nature. So when we got started with Aspire, it was, hey, I don't like selling one or two or three or four tickets at a time. I want to sell as many tickets at a time as possible.
Yeah.
And I kind of struck gold in one of our campaigns where we were selling for the women's volleyball national championships. It was going to take place in Spokane, Washington. So,
Okay.
super far northwest, really close to the Canadian border over there. And, we had a huge pipeline or database of contacts of people that had visited the championships the previous year, but they had been in Gainesville, Florida, or something like that. So, you know, all the way across the country. So, what's the carryover going to be?
Hmm.
I got lucky and I came across Volleyball BC, which is the
Okay.
governing body of all volleyball in Canada, and they sent my one individual sales flyer out to 17,000 people, and I
Wow.
never had to pick up the phone for that campaign again.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
it really, taught me quickly how to, scale my business and allow me to be more creative in my thought process, even in, our, relatively minuscule role as inside salespeople at the time. So, you know, people looking to get into the industry or get into the space, you know, there are a lot of different routes and paths that you can take, but,
Mhm.
I always say that sales is gonna be the quickest and the easiest way to find success in this industry, and even if you are intimidated by it or are, a little bit unsure of your skill, it's just about finding that pathway in there that allows you to be successful. Um, Nobody's path is the same, so whatever you can do creatively to get to where you want to go, you're going to find
Mhm.
success. Sales is where people usually push you, and unless you're, a graphic designer or creative strategist or something in that way, sales, I think, is going to be the quickest and the easiest way for you to get to where you want to go.
Yeah, yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense and crazy story, like to even think about, right? Where boom, you don't even need to pick up the phone.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
guess
no,
maybe kind of building on that, because let's say there's people starting off in sales, or even let's say people who are looking to even like climb within their organizations now. Do you have maybe any like a tip for like, hey, like this is a way that I found to have success with sales? Obviously, the story you had was a great example, but maybe anything a little more onto that.
yeah. I mean, the biggest thing, even for me now, within Flint United and ensuring that our pipelines remain full, that the energy and the excitement remains full, is, you always have to be, locked in on the goal. It's not always about, actually closing a dollar or cent sale, but the energy and the joy that people feel from, the opportunities that we have in this space are going to be, most important, because a lot of times that success comes from, the most unexpected places. Um, so, I mean, without going, too deep into a sales process and all those sorts of things, is, when you're working, when you're out being social, when you're, doing whatever it is that you do, those are going to be the times that really impact that pipeline and that flow of good leads and good energy, going into your project. I mean, when you talk about marketing, when you talk about sales, when you talk about uh, branding, and all of those things, it's the sum of all that allows you to be successful. So, you know, sports can be one of those things that consumes you, just because a lot of times it's, long days and long nights all in one. Um, but if you maintain that attitude of where else would you rather be, and it kind of it helps push you along.
Yeah, yeah, no, no, for sure. I think that's some like great tips right there. And then I guess like how did your career further from that, right? You were talking about your time at Aspire. How did things start getting rolling afterwards, like to your next, positions?
Yeah, so Aspire, the first thing, they have a great foundation of teaching.
Hmm.
Um, they allow us to be creative. They allow us to take chances. They allow us to, really find, what our sales voice is.
Hmm.
And, when I was there, the company was still relatively small, I would say. And they were still developing and they were still growing. And, we got to see a lot, we got to do a lot, and really understand the, how a sales office and a team is built. So, we had Georgia Tech right across town that we could,
Hmm.
grab tools from, and really see how a on-campus product worked. We had a small contract with the Milwaukee Bucks, and a group of us got called up to go visit, their campus and facilities for a few days, and do some selling for them. Um, and once we got to that point, the next opportunity we got to was to go to the University of Kansas. So left from Atlanta and went on site at KU, and that's where I'll say the tools and the concepts that we learned in that sales center
Hmm.
really came out and really allowed us to be successful, because I'm sitting in Atlanta selling tickets for an event that I'm not going to a
Yeah.
facility that I'm not going to actually be able to visit. So the art of storytelling, the art of being illustrative,
Hmm.
and really, you know selling the story to the fan, the mom, the dad, or whoever it is that's going to be coming, and being able to take that into a live setting, to a physical on campus setting, was the next step. So the next best part about that is we were also able to impact the fundraising team at KU. So not just selling tickets for all their varsity sports, both revenue generating and non-revenue generating. But we were also able to build relationships on a larger level. So I believe we were able to fundraise, or they gave us contracts or contacts up to, I want to say, $50,000 or so. Um, and at this point, we had been pushing some pretty serious numbers, but this really allowed us to start to expand our growth palette. It really allowed us to expand what success looked like, and the types of opportunities that we could present. So now we're not just selling to everyday ticket buyers, but we're going into businesses. We're able to go out into the community and really start having a true impact on this organization. Had a really, really good time there. And I think at the time that may have been the first university third party partnership that, had that type of relationship.
Yeah.
So it was kind of groundbreaking in that way, at least for Aspire. And from there, just continue to hone in on the skill. And I say that probably the biggest thing that allowed us to be successful at KU, um, at this time, it was the year that Joel Embiid and Andrew Wiggins got drafted. So they
Hmm.
went like number one and number three in the NBA draft. And something happened in Allen Fieldhouse where they took some seats and reallocated them to season ticket holders and large donors, and we were able to sell from a list of StubHub purchasers. So this is another one of those things where sometimes people don't know that these organizations not only do, normal, everyday ticket buyers sell their tickets on StubHub, but there's also strategy for the entity, the university, the professional team, where they also sell their tickets on StubHub as well. So we came across a group of, I want to say it was 5 or 6 ticket buyers, and they were spending anywhere from 25 to $40,000 a year on tickets, but they were just purchased on StubHub. Typically, when you see things like that, it's going to be, some, huge reseller. But in this case, it wasn't. It was just, everyday fans who wanted to come to a select number of games and wanted some of the best seats available. So, through that, we were able to not only mature their spend, but we were also able to get them the exact seats they wanted for more games. And they were, brought into um, the university from a different entry point. So instead of just
Mhm.
buying through StubHub, they were now, actual donors and gaining that equity in the money that they were spending. So those opportunities then took me uh, to back to CMU, back to Central
Mhm.
Michigan, where I was the athletic director of fundraising and development, and you know, having the relationship there when I was a student athlete, maintaining good relationships from graduation up until where we got professionally, is how that came about. So it was a wild ride up to that point.
Yeah, yeah, no, I've been like that's so interesting. Just kind of like that sales process where, that like you're saying, not many people know that. Where I wasn't aware that teams would go sell on StubHub or, I don't know. So
Yeah,
that's very cool. And then I guess you might maybe like touching on so obviously you can see on LinkedIn like what does your time look like when you go back to Central Michigan? Because then I saw, then it also leads into getting back to like in I guess firstly into a pro sports team or
yeah,
amateur sports team.
yeah. So at CMU, that was you know really where I had the most creative control, and
Mhm.
where I really was able to put my foundation and everything that I've learned to the test. Um, you go into in a university setting where I'm responsible for each individual team's fundraising efforts and goals, as well as the overall fundraising goal, to a certain extent for the university. Um, having a dedicated staff, having, you know, a full year, a full calendar year of events, not just, athletic competitions, but all of your donorship, um, all of your bowl games, all of your away games, and just having to manage all those things
Mhm.
and understanding what this truly means to the university, and being a student athlete, and then having the opportunity to see the work that was going on behind the scenes to allow us to be successful was truly enlightening. And and just knowing that you know this is nothing that we can do alone. Um, and I know it's tough sometimes as a student athlete. You get in there, and the days get long, and the nights get later and later, and you're studying and you're practicing, and you got all your training, you got study table, and all these different things.
Mhm.
Um, and to come back and to be on the other side, it just makes you work that much harder, because you know exactly what at this time still some of my friends were going through, um and knowing that the work that the athletic department in the university was doing on our behalf wouldn't go unnoticed. So it was a true joy um to see our work truly being appreciated. And then some of the perks, getting to travel with the teams, getting being able to go into to large arenas and to bowl games and hosting events, and making sure that alumni are taken care of and that they have the opportunity to pour back into the university. It was a fun ride.
Yeah, no, that sounds unreal, and like I guess you have such a huge undertaking like that. You're having such a great experience. What made you decide to go to the OHL and the Flint Firebirds?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, just being able to go in a different direction, moving over to the pro side of things, um, and building and developing another level of sport. The OHL is a very unique organization. Uh,
Hmm.
you know, us on the American side of things, we don't really get an opportunity to uh, experience it. A lot of people still don't know what the
Yeah.
OHL is, but taking an athlete and seeing, knowing that they're a professional athlete at 15, 16 years old, and the trajectory and the path that they take to get to the next level was truly, truly exciting to me. And
Hmm.
not knowing it then is probably one of the most interesting things that I've learned in this whole journey. And that we'll be able to kind of touch and show how it relates to where I am now. But to have that opportunity, for those athletes to have that opportunity is really amazing. So being able to work for the Firebirds, uh, and to get to do some quote unquote international work, um,
Hmm.
is has been amazing. And it all comes full circle.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I bet. And I was speaking to someone today within the OHL, and there's exciting ways where it's like pro sports, but it's a little more like agile, I would say, right? Where there's you know like room to grow and like kind of
Yeah.
try things out. So yeah, no, that's I could for sure see that. And then what was your time like there? And then how did it then lead to like the Flint City Bucks?
Yeah, so we have you've got the OHL, you got the Firebirds, and that brand was growing, growing, growing,
Mhm,
doing very
mhm,
well. Um, and the president there of that organization, Costa Papista at the time, um, then transitioned, and another team came in at USL 2 with the Flint City Bucks, and again, just another new undertaking, and being able to see that develop from the ground up.
mhm, mhm,
How a budget is built, how a true timeline is set, how the marketing rollout is, and all of those things. Um, it was just another opportunity for growth, and another opportunity to learn the full scope of an organization. So it really transitioned. You start off, like I said before, start off in sales, kind of nervous. You don't know what's going on. You don't feel that strongly, in that. But the road winds and turns, and then you find yourself in a space to where you're truly able to see how your efforts can impact a total organization. So now you're not just putting butts in seats, but you're truly the 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 lifeline of financing, these organizations, and why it is so important and why it is such a role. Um, so being able to kind of start with the Bucks from ground zero was the purpose for that move, and it was probably one of the best decisions that I made for sure.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's awesome, man. I guess like before we kind of get into your current position, I guess you kind of touched on how the Flint City Bucks kind of came about that role, but how did it come up with the Firebirds, right? Because I think that's one of the biggest things where maybe people are trying to change positions within sports or even kind of get there first. How did this come about? Was it like your network, like
Yeah, yeah. I mean, just it's definitely your network, and maintaining connectivity and inroads where you are.
Mhm,
Even though you know the Firebirds was a new team, there's still so many other things going on in the community, in ways that I was able to be connected in sports. And actually, my name was just kind of thrown in the hat to be a part. Um, so it's even especially now, there's so much going on. It's like you have to maintain some stability,
mhm,
but
mhm.
you may also you got to hustle a little bit. And I mean, if it's something that you truly love, it shouldn't be too much a problem. And that's really what it was for me. It was like, hey, I know I may be in this space, but I still have this over here that I truly enjoy uh working for and working towards. So that's kind of how that happened, is just having somebody thinking of me and put my name in the ring for that opportunity.
Yeah, yeah, no, of course, that's awesome. And then I guess kind of getting to where you are now, right? You were talking about how the Flint City Bucks was probably one of the best decisions you made, and you're talking about how you were able to learn how to basically build an organization from the ground up. Is that something which kind of when this opportunity, or maybe you can kind of touch on how this opportunity came about, and then obviously you can kind of touch on how your experience with the Bucks allowed you to move forward with this.
Yeah, for sure. So you know where I am now, owner president of Flint United, uh, professional basketball team that is a part of the league that we're in, is the basketball league. So very similar, somewhat similar to the OHL, minus the kind of direct connectivity to the NBA. Um,
Hmm.
but a 45 league team that gives professional basketball players in America the opportunity to make it to the next level. Um, I guess we were given, I won't say credibility, but we were really solidified through the pandemic, unfortunately, just because athletes weren't able to go overseas. So, this league has truly given guys another opportunity without having to go, thousands of miles away, and, to countries and areas where they may not be comfortable, or, they don't have as many resources. So, that's where we are now. And, seeing the Flint Firebirds, seeing the Flint City Bucks, seeing the support that they've received from our community, uh, has absolutely been, instrumental in where I am today. So, kind of in the transition, even in sports. Again, I was with the Firebirds, was with the Bucks, and before I get to where I am today,
Hmm.
I worked for General Motors for three
Okay.
years. I worked for General Motors for 3 years, but in the meantime, I still hustled. I was still, in the sports industry. So I
Hmm.
consult for a firm based in LA. It's VGI Consulting. So
Okay.
uh, in that in that organization right now, it's a boutique marketing firm. So say right now, some of the clients we work with, LaMelo Ball, PJ Tucker, Penny Hardaway, Mike Vick, and there's quite a few more on that list. Um, but the basketball league, or the TBL, was one of my clients. So, my responsibility for them was, looking for league wide opportunities in sponsorship, in marketing, and endorsement. Um, but before being able to do that, I had to know the inner workings of the teams and of the organizations. And so, once I kind of got a hold on, once I got a hold of, what that really looked like, Flint being a basketball town, I just it was a no brainer. I
Hmm.
was able to um, really make sense of the whole thing. So it wasn't just, hey, I'm doing this because I love sports and I want to own a team and X, Y, and Z. It was true alignment for my community, for my hometown. We've got what, 3 or 4 guys in the NBA right now, producing at a very high level. We've got 2 or 3 guys in the NFL. We've got one for sure WNBA player, and we got a coach in the WNBA. And basketball and the city of Flint, are synonymous with one another. And
Hmm.
I would just wanted to be a part of this, be a part of, adding to our legacy in the sport.
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. That makes a lot of sense. And then, do you mind maybe getting into like what is it like owning like a franchise, right, or an organization? Like, obviously, you're able to kind of develop the experience, but like that's something that not everyone gets to kind of do.
Yeah, I mean, it's still, unreal at times. We just finished up our second season. the amount of responsibility and the undertaking that that I've placed on my shoulders has been uh, is is amazing. I mean, but everything that you can think of that it takes that plus a little bit more. From a fundraising standpoint, from a marketing and branding standpoint, um, to building true partnerships in the community. And the biggest thing, being in a somewhat small city, just under 100,000 people, you know, the phrase that I've started to use quite a bit is building industry. You look at large markets, you look at Los Angeles, you look at a Miami, you look at a New York, you look at our neighbors, Detroit, and with even those things, they have some things in place that allow them to be successful. So we try to mimic that, in our hometown in the city of Flint. So, you've got the Firebirds, you've got the Bucks, you also have Flint City AFC now, which is the women's section of Flint City Bucks, and then you have myself. So we've got four professional teams. And we actually have a women's basketball team too, the Monarchs. But you've got all these things you know that can come together and really build what we see everywhere else. So just like, for us, we turn on, now it's Bally Sports Detroit, but all of the sports in the city of Detroit are basically housed on this one network. So you can turn it on, get up to date news on all your local teams. Um, they have media partners that are local. They have, food, drink, beverage partners that are
Mhm.
local. So, that's kind of where we are with this thing now. It's like, hey, of course it's difficult. It's not easy. If it was easy,
Yeah.
everybody would be doing it. But now that we're here, we decided to take on these challenges. How do we truly build how do we truly build our community? How would we truly build the industry to take it to the next level to make sure that it's, a true property and a true mainstay and foundational piece in our community.
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. That all sounds amazing. Like you're saying, like that's not an easy undertaking by all means. And I guess before I kind of wrap up the interview, one question that I do kind of have that's of interest, like what's something because like, when I'm starting my business, I was thinking of okay, like I need to do A, B, C, and sometimes the things I thought would be hard end up being easy, and the things I thought would be easy have been hard. So, what kind of things now, being an owner of a team, president of a team, what's something that kind of surprised you about it, right? Where maybe you weren't expecting, oh, like that's a little more important, or that's a little more difficult than initially expected.
Yeah, absolutely. Now we're, from year one to year two, there have been, actually starting during the pandemic and then coming out of the pandemic, uh, budgeting is obviously going to be one of the most difficult things. And, I'm no accountant or super mathematician, uh, nor can I really forecast some of the things that have gone on in the past year. I don't think a lot of people could have.
No.
Um, that's by far one of the hardest things. Um, some of the easiest things, uh, and again, this is for me just because we've been doing it a while, but the sales portion is still relatively easy. Um, Building some larger partnerships in the community have have been relatively easy. And but then going back to that, we want to start looking at larger statewide partnerships, regional partnerships, and figuring out those things has been the most difficult. So just understanding the true value of your marketing, understanding the true value of your visibility and connectivity. Um, you know, you can show all the analytics that you want, but if it's not driving directly back towards, some type of monetary gain, then the numbers don't really mean anything. So
Mhm.
figuring out ways to really drive those things towards, um, currency is definitely most difficult for us right now.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, and I think that's kind of a great way to kind of wrap up your route. But before we end it, I always have like two questions I'd like to ask every guest, right? So, obviously, we've heard about your whole route so far, and I like to kind of go into the future, right? I say this every episode, and I say it to all my friends, all my family, etc. I want to live until I'm 103 years old and be on a rocking chair enjoying life. So when I'm at that age, I'm going to be thinking about all the things I've done in my career. I wanted to ask, if you get to 103 as well, what is something so far from your career that you'd remember on your rocking chair that would make you go, wow, like I can't believe I was able to do that for a living.
It would definitely be owning this team.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, if I live to be 103, then I hope the team is still there and thriving, as well. Leaving something that lives beyond you and can impact, you know, 103 people plus is definitely, pretty high up on my list.
yeah. No, no, I bet that would be awesome, and hopefully that does end up happening. And then obviously we went into the future. Now going back in time, you're speaking to 16, 18, a younger version of yourself, Kevin, right? When you're about to enter, Central Michigan. What is something that you've now learned, right, over your career and your experiences that you wish that a younger version of yourself, myself, people listening, anyone that you wish, like you knew a little sooner?
I would just say start sooner.
Hmm.
Uh, any goals and dreams or ideas that you have, start sooner. Um, like you say, our everyone's path, everyone's route is different. But the dreams that I have today, I had them when I was 16. I had them when I was 12, and obviously you got to learn, grow, and develop. But um, yeah, figuring out a way to start sooner and attacking those goals and dreams today is definitely something that I would tell my younger self.
Yeah, no, and that's why I kind of like asking that question last because I find it's a great way to kind of wrap it all up. So yeah, no, I think that's some great advice. Like like I say this every episode, but like that's why I like doing it so much. I have my notes, I have my timestamps everywhere. That's what I was trying to write down quickly. So yeah,
Yeah,
this
y'all.
was a great episode, and you've provided like a very cool perspective, and like I really enjoyed hearing your out. So unless there's anything else you'd like to share, thank you so much for coming on. It's been unreal.
No, man, I appreciate it. I enjoy the content that you're cooking up here for us, man. And
Yeah.
Whitewell is doing some great to check out the site. So I appreciate the opportunity and look forward to growing a great relationship and maybe doing some more work in the future.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I would love that, and we will absolutely be connected going forward. But yeah, that's a wrap for episode 102. And thank you for everyone for listening. If you haven't already, subscribe to the Route on social media at the Route Sports. Follow, subscribe, etc. All that good stuff. And we'll see everyone next week. And thank you again to Kevin for joining us.
Thank you.